Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a bit of a detour. We're moving away from history books and academic journals and heading straight into the field. We're deep diving into a remarkably specific document, the Rhino Project Environmental Safety and Pollution Control Manual.
Which is, I have to say, a fantastic source.
Right. This isn't theory. It's a living, breathing set of operating procedures for a major industrial site based in Pilibhit, Uttar Pradesh.
Yeah.
It forces us to look at pollution control not as some, abstract challenge, but as a mandatory financial and regulatory requirement.
Well, and that's the key. A manual like this is all about minimizing liability. When you're operating near a sensitive area, which Pilibhit is known for,
Right.
the definitions have to be razor sharp. They can't just say pollution. They have to define what it is and, more importantly, what tangible, auditable action stops it.
And that's our mission today. We want to break down this stack of real-world rules and translate them into, personal knowledge for you.
Taking the mindset of a project manager.
Exactly. Moving from the construction zone right to your curb.
I love it.
Okay, so let's unpack this with the manual's core definitions. They don't just lump everything together. They have a very clear 5-part taxonomy of contamination.
And that's critical because each type dictates a different solution, a different technology, a different line item in the budget.
Right. The first 3 are probably what you'd expect, but the specifics are telling.
Usual suspects.
The usual suspects, yeah. So air pollution, they define it as contamination by harmful gases, smoke, dust. But the focus is clearly on vehicle exhaust and industrial emissions.
So we're talking carbon monoxide, sulfur oxides, fine particulate matter.
Exactly. Combustion byproducts. Then there's water pollution, contamination of, local water bodies from industrial waste, sewage, pesticides.
And they get specific there too, right? Things like industrial sludge, heavy metal runoff.
They do. And number 3, soil pollution. So degradation of soil quality from chemicals, industrial waste, and critically improper disposal methods.
But this is where it gets really insightful. The manual moves beyond those 3 and pulls out 2 other categories.
Yes.
And these are crucial for site safety, for worker welfare, and for the local habitat. They require their own distinct control measures.
And the first one is noise pollution. It's defined as excessive or harmful sound from heavy machinery, vehicles, construction.
All the hammering and drilling. And this is the first real nod toward human quality of life. Noise isn't just an annoyance.
No.
It's a measurable stressor that requires mitigation, like physical sound barriers, which that's a cost.
Yeah.
That's a design requirement.
And the 5th one, which I think is the biggest structural takeaway here, is plastic pollution. The manual separates it completely from water pollution, which is where plastic often ends up. It's defined specifically as the accumulation of plastic waste that does not decompose naturally.
And that distinction is so important. Why? Because when you define it as its own category, it shifts the entire focus. It tells you the material itself is the problem, not just its location. So it stops being an end-of-pipe issue like cleaning water. It becomes a material life cycle liability. The manual forces a strategy of refusal and segregation at the source, not just expensive cleanup later. That's a huge insight into how compliance officers think.
So there are our 5: air, water, soil, noise, and the critical distinction, plastic. Now let's move past definitions to the effects, because the manual details some direct human consequences they go way beyond a typical illness checklist.
Right. This is where you see pollution as a systemic disruptor. It hits health, security, and economics all at once.
Starting with the immediate health impacts, the list is very specific. Respiratory diseases, asthma, chronic bronchitis, but also heart problems, skin diseases, cancer risk.
And a generally weakened immune system.
Right, and it makes a point to say that children and the elderly are the most vulnerable.
But then there's the downstream financial drain. The manual has a whole section on quality life impacts that are, they're basically economic consequences.
Like reduced productivity at work.
Exactly. Sick days, chronic low-level illness. You combine that with increased medical expenses, and suddenly you have this hidden tax on the community. Pollution is literally making people poorer.
And when you drill down into the water pollution side of it, the risks just escalate. Contaminated drinking water isn't some vague threat. They name the diseases: cholera, typhoid.
And those don't just affect health. They can paralyze local commerce, local infrastructure.
And that paralysis extends to the farm. Reduced agricultural productivity from contaminated soil and water. I mean, that directly impacts local food security.
You can draw a straight line from heavy metal runoff at the project site to the price and quality of food in the local market.
But the section that really got me was the specific inclusion of mental health impact.
Yes.
We always talk about pollution as a physical threat, but this manual lists stress, anxiety, and reduced quality of sleep as direct environmental consequences.
And I find that fascinating. It reinforces why noise pollution is its own category. If you're exposed to constant construction noise, a mandate for noise barriers becomes a mandate for mental health protection. If that noise stops you from sleeping, it causes fatigue.
Which leads right back to that reduced productivity we just talked about.
Exactly. So the roar of a diesel generator doesn't just annoy you. It weakens your immune system through sleep deprivation, increases your anxiety, and makes you less effective at your job.
It's a triple threat: physical, psychological, and financial damage, all from one source.
It's a deeply pervasive mechanism. The manual forces the project manager to treat noise abatement with the same seriousness as air filtration. It's all connected.
Okay, so that's the problem defined. Let's shift gears to the actionable steps. This is the heart of deep dive, the mandatory operational controls.
This is the playbook.
If you were running the Rhino project, what specific things would you have to do?
Right. And these are all about containment and prevention.
So, starting with the construction site itself, the effort to control dust is intense. They mandate water sprinklers.
But not just randomly. It has to be scheduled watering of roads and work areas, often with specific volumes based on traffic or weather.
And physical control, too. All construction materials, debris, soil, it has to be properly covered.
With tarps or netting, yeah. That's not about being tidy. It's about preventing wind and rain from spreading contaminants.
And for vehicles, it's not enough to just say they're well maintained. They need documentation, proof of filter changes, emission tests.
And tying back to the taxonomy, waste segregation is non-negotiable.
Absolutely.
Dedicated, clearly marked bins for biodegradable, non-biodegradable, and hazardous waste. And that hazardous waste disposal, that's often the single highest compliance cost.
For noise, the solutions are very pragmatic. Physical noise barriers like temporary walls around the loudest equipment.
And scheduling. This is key. Noisy work like jackhammering has to be done during permitted hours to minimize disruption to the community's sleep.
And finally, they have to invest in natural buffers. Plant trees around the perimeter.
And not just any trees. The manual specifies dense, low-level foliage that can actually dampen sound and filter dust. They're functional infrastructure.
Okay, so that's the physical site. What about the management systems? The stuff happening in the workplace?
This is about embedding safety into the company culture.
It starts with regular, documented environmental audits. Not just to find violations, but to preemptively check compliance.
And worker safety is huge. Proper PPZ is mandatory, and we're talking specifics. N95 respirators for dust, proper ear protection for noise.
That PPE is the worker's last line of defense against the very environment the project is creating.
It is. And then there's preparedness. Maintaining spill kits for chemical emergencies.
That detail is fascinating.
It is, because it's not enough to just hope a spill won't happen. They have to have specific kits ready for different types of spills. Oil is different from, say, an acid runoff.
That's operational readiness.
The underlying principle here for all these controls is a dual mandate. You follow these guidelines to protect the workers, and you do it to protect the surrounding wildlife habitat. The project's success is defined by both.
And that brings us to our final section, translating this rigorous professional standard directly to you, the listener. If a major project site has to follow these structured rules.
How do those standards translate into your own actions?
We're moving from project manager to personal environmental auditor.
I like that.
So let's start with personal responsibility. Daily actions. The manual actually pushes for alternatives to polluting transport. So use public transit, carpool, bike.
Resource efficiency for your travel.
Right. It also says to avoid casual pollution, specifically burning waste or leaves.
Which seems like a small thing, but it contributes massively to local particulate matter, a core threat identified in the manual.
And that structural insight about plastic pollution, that has to be adopted personally.
Yeah.
The mandate is simple. Reduce plastic usage. Carry reusable bags.
And dispose of waste properly in designated segregated bins. It's your own personal material life cycle management strategy.
You also have to think about saving water and electricity, which mitigates the upstream pollution from producing those utilities. But the truly professional standard here, the final item, is reporting pollution violations to the authorities.
Yes.
The manual says project staff have to keep the environmental officer's contact details on hand. For you, this means turning passive observation, seeing someone dumping waste into active participation.
That shifts you from being just a resident to being an active environmental steward, an outsourced compliance officer.
And that stewardship extends to the community level. Participating in cleanliness drives, educating your neighbors, supporting local initiatives.
Actively choosing eco-friendly products. It's about scaling your influence.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at this super specific manual and realized its rules are, well, they're incredibly clear guides for personal behavior.
Exactly. The goal isn't just to be nicer to the planet. The goal is structured risk mitigation, financial savings, and mandatory health protection.
The manual closes with a line about empowerment.
Every small action counts. Controlling pollution starts with each individual taking responsibility. That's not lofty environmentalism. That is operational discipline for daily life.
So today we broke down the 5 types of contamination: air, water, soil, noise, and plastic, and we saw their full impact, including the mental and financial burdens. We also reviewed the specific technical controls needed on a project site.
And that leads to our final thought for you. The Rhino project manual outlines these comprehensive, structured steps audits, segregated waste, physical barriers, all to achieve that dual goal of protecting workers and the local habitat. So, if a professional project has to use this high level of structured thinking and detailed auditing to protect against pollution, how can you apply that same mindset of a project manager to your own daily life? What does your personal environmental audit look like, and how often are you checking your own compliance?
Food for thought. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the actionable and auditable side of pollution control.